Don't worry, you have come to the right channel. Hello and welcome my friends to my YouTube channel, philippospan. Weekly tips and tricks on how to work with Microsoft Office applications. Today's video will be about Microsoft Word.
How to insert a table of contents in a Microsoft Word document. What is a table of contents? It is a table that usually includes the titles or descriptions of the first level headings or otherwise chapters in our document with their page numbering. Sometimes it includes second level headings and third level headings. A table of contents should be comfortable to be read, to be properly formatted, and to be accurate. Stay tuned to find out how to insert a table of contents in a Microsoft Word document. I have created a document that contains different chapters. For us to create a table of contents, first we must select the text which will be included in the table of contents. That is why we must select the text first when the following example here is the title of the chapter. Once the text that we want to be included in the table of content is selected, we must format it as a heading. For us to do that while the text is selected, from the Home tab of the ribbon and under the area Styles, we open the drop-down menu at the right where we can see the following notifications. Styles give your document a consistent polished look. They also allow you to see the navigation pane and add a table of contents. Here we are. If you don't like the look of these styles, check out the Design tab for more options. I open the drop-down menu, and here I'm going to select a different style. Heading 2. Here we are. There's a Heading 2 style applied to the title of the chapter. We must do the same for the rest of the text or chapters that we want to include in our table of contents. That is why we repeat the same steps, meaning from the Home tab of the ribbon and from the area styles, we select again the Heading 2 style. Explanation, Styles, Heading 2, again. Yeah, I just have 2 chapters for this. Further up. Example, Heading 2, Theory, Heading 2, Introduction, Heading 2. We place our cursor at the end of the document and then we select the command Table of Contents. To find the command Table of Contents, we must select the tab References, and from the left we locate the area Table of Contents. And here we see the command Table of Contents. Provide an overview of your document by adding a table of contents. Text using a headed style will be included automatically. To include more entries, select the text and click Add Text. The table will be refreshed when you click Update Table. If I open the drop-down menu, we can see different built-in table of contents that we can insert in our document. Automatic Table 1, Automatic Table 2, Manual Table. I'm going to select Automatic Table 2. And the table of contents has been inserted in my document. Introduction, Theory, Example, Demonstration, Explanation. And we can see also on which page each chapter is. Click or tap to follow the link. If we click or tap the introduction link, we'll be transferred to the first heading, first chapter. Let's go back again. Explanation. Straight away, we've moved to the last chapter of our document. If we want to change the table of contents, all we have to do is, once again from the Reference tab, Table of Contents, we open the drop-down menu, but we want manual table, and straight away the table has changed. We can also find more tables of contents from Office.com. Here we can see no online content available. Custom table of contents, and if we don't want the table of contents, we can easily remove it. As mentioned, a table of contents allows readers to move directly to a specific section in our document, and it gives the readers an overview of the document's contents and organization.
Thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed what you saw in this video, please subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free and let me know by heading down to the comment section.